Hi Neil, as promised, a little recap on the key points that we covered during your most recent visit. The key area of concern was how quickly the right arm was straightening and moving away from the torso. So the right arm, as it straightens and moves away, is pronating, which is rolling the club face shut, which in your case was manifesting itself as a pull straight on the left hand side. With your longer clubs, that may vary and turn into sort of overcuts or even pull hooks. So controlling the rate at which the right arm straightens out, as the right arm straightens out, starts to rotate, the wrist angles also start to come out, which is the sort of heavy shot that you can experience on occasion. And the angle of attack would tend to get a little bit steeper than you would want it. As you came through the ball, the sort of pivot was stalling a little bit in order for you to do that. So we looked at tidying up that area of the swing first and foremost. So what we did here is we placed the towel beneath the elbow, which is encouraging you to pivot more and fire your accumulators a little bit less. So the right arm now doesn't straighten as quick. It's less pronated, slightly more supinated at impact, which is more suitable for starting the ball off straight or even slightly right. And then as the right arm runs out through impact, it does it at a lesser rate. The club face is more stable. The hands orbit the body better post impact, creating some better trail arm alignments at P9, which we'll come to shortly. So working more on being led by the pivot, chicken and egg scenario. If the right arm straightens out too quick, the pivot has to stop. And if the pivot stops, the right arm straightens out too quick. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But what we looked at was, what better players were doing, what the more accurate ball strikers tend to do. And again, that moves sort of very typical of your bad one, which at the minute is a pull to the left. So a little bit more pivot, a little bit less pronation of the right arm. Hand path, much more appropriate on the way through. We looked at that from the view back towards you. And the other thing that we noticed was that when this is in place and the pivot keeps moving, club face is very stable. And as you come through at P9, the trail arm at P9 is very similar to and pretty much matched up with the lead arm at P5. So again, that's another thought for you, to match up the trail arm at P9 with wherever it was or wherever the lead arm was at P5. And that's particularly appropriate when we looked at your short game. Your pitching shots should be done from a square stance, and they should be done where you are trying to match up your trail arm at P9 to where it was at P5. They were the key things to concern yourself with. The left shift that we talked about is a very small one, which allows you to keep your low point forward. You don't necessarily have to align to the left to allow that to happen. The other thing we looked at, which sort of old habit that you've crept back into, would be the upper body just drifting forward a little bit post impact, keeping the neck flex in there, keeping a little bit of flex in the spine. So very simply on that one, we place the club to the side of the head so that the lower body is moving forward whilst the upper body is staying stationary or more stable, which is then allowing you to extend the spine, extend the neck, and extend the pelvis a little bit more. So just adding a little bit of extension, and that improved as the session went on. Those two swings we're looking at there are just one swing apart, but the feeling here is that the lower body was working beneath you a little bit more rather than the upper centre drifting out in front of the lower centre, which can happen on occasion. to a much greater degree than what we're experiencing here on the left to start with. But just not quite enough linear movement, not quite enough separation of the two, feeling like the head was drifting forward as opposed to lower body moving forward, head becoming a little bit more stable. Small change, but has a profound effect on your ability to hit the goal shots that you want to hit. Good luck with it. Hope that all makes sense, and look forward to working with you again in a few weeks' time.